Caption, TPE presents The Psychology of Adult Development. Title, Phenomenal Psychology. Pets and Animals. Ryan and Pablo on a video call. The men are 3D animated avatars. Ryan is a swimming fish, while Pablo has the head of a cat.
Here we are. Hi, Pablo.
Hey, Ryan.
So in this podcast, our third installation for our course, we're going to be looking at pets, and not just pets. We're also going to be looking at animals, wild ones, imaginary ones, fictional ones, creatures. But we're going to be covering some different topics in this podcast today. We're going to be looking at why we have pets. We're going to have a discussion about that. We're going to be looking at a little bit of the research on pets, how it can support us, and some contradictory stuff that we found that we're going to dig into a little bit. We're going to share some personal stories about pets that we've had and that we currently have.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to chat a little bit about some media that we've enjoyed, maybe some famous pets that we have a connection to.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also going to be talking about animals that we actually feel very much connected to. So those are the things that we're going to be chatting about in this podcast. So here we are in our altered shapes here, but we're going to take a moment to get back into our regular clothes and come on back and talk about all these things.
Oh, so soon? We're not going to be do the whole thing like this?
We're not going to do the whole thing like this.
That's going to be intolerable for people if we're cat and fish for the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay,
it's
fine.
Distracting for us.
It is. I'm sorry. Look what I can do though with my ears before we stop. Look.
His cat ears sway side to side.
Aww.
That's kind of neat.
I love it.
All right.
Except you're a cat and I'm a fish, and I need to feel less stressed doing this podcast.
Okay. All right. Let's dump out of our costumes.
Okay. See you in a second.
Okay.
Pablo's cat head disappears. He has a trim beard and wears headphones.
All right. Now I got to figure out how to do that.
You got to shut off your filter. This is all staying in, by the way.
Pablo has rolls of colorful yarn set as his virtual background. Ryan's fish disappears.
Here we
Nice.
go.
You did it. Proud of you.
I did do it. I'm learning.
Ryan sits on his couch.
So Pablo, we got a bunch of stuff that we're going to talk about. But the first thing that I think we should chat about is, why do we have pets? What are your thoughts on that?
Why do we have pets? I know why I have pets. I don't know why you have pets, but I have pets. I don't even want to speculate why you have pets. I have pets to love them and to be loved by them. They're good companions. They're fun. This is controversial apparently, but I think that they're healthy for you. And they're like family after a while, you know?
Yeah, they are like family. Especially some pets live very, very long lives, and some pets are in families for an incredibly long time. Some folks get pets when they're little kids and they have them right up until adulthood, like these amazing long relationships. When I think about like why we have pets, it's like there's so much stuff that they bring us, right? Like we have responsibilities. We actually get the opportunity to be a caregiver, which I think matters to us in a big way, to know that we're needed and that we can take care of something.
Pablo nods while Ryan ponders.
That they give us unconditional love. I think that's a really big one for me. That pets are able to be there for you no matter what. You can be exactly who you are. You don't feel judgment from them. Well, not all the time. Sometimes with cats, you can feel some judgment. Maybe with some other animals as well. But being
with
a
nicer
cat,
animals, yeah.
I can definitely feel judged at times by my cats. But overall, it's like they are able to be there for us in the tough times and in the fun times and all of the in-between places. And they're just so like, even Steven, like things don't seem to really bother them that much. And they're such a wonderful support to us to have fun with, and also to really feel the shittiness in our lives and to have that companionship.
I just became aware of something and this might be a little personal, but not being an actual father, and I just realized that my name is Father Cat right now, and not being a father of a human child. I think like on some level, I've missed out on that, or I feel like I missed that in my life. And so a pet can also be like a surrogate child in a way.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I think with a pet, you're giving a lot of similar type of care, feeding them and making sure that they're healthy and taking them to get any kind of medical help that they might need. But yeah, like really giving them a loving, secure, safe home and teaching them
Yeah.
some things.
Teaching them the hard lessons of life, and sending them to school, and all that stuff.
And particularly, again, I'm going to focus on cats because I've had more cats in my life than I have other kinds of pets. But also, there's a lot of time invested in teaching them what not to do.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, keeping them safe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't eat that plant. Stop that.
Ryan chuckles.
So, like, animals are genuine, right? Like, they don't have any motivation other than to be who they are. And how wonderful it is to have that in our lives, where we have these little creatures that just do what they want to do and are very willing to let us know that and give all of themselves to us. I'm thinking also about the reasons why we have pets too, is the amount of emotional support it can give us and physical support too. And like these pets and animals in our lives like have so many different roles and jobs and functions. There's service animals and
A photo of a dog appears on screen.
professional animals that have very specific jobs and all of these things, right? Like it's incredible how much of a space that animals have in our lives and how we can cohabitate with them.
A different dog appears.
Also, they get us moving too. That just occurred to me too. It's like, oh my gosh, having pets is like a source of like physical exercise and getting us out of
That's true.
a moment too. They can help get us out of a moment if we're feeling stuck in a moment or feeling, sometimes we're not so great at taking breaks and remembering that we need to take breaks. And we can be so focused on getting stuff done and working hard, and pets have a way of interrupting that and demanding your attention in a way that can feel fun and pleasurable, and we don't feel bad about it, to actually have this creature in the house who's like, no, I need you to pet me right now, or I need you to play with this toy with me, that we can actually make the excuse to take the break the animal and not something that we need, which can also be a little bit of a relief for us as well.
Various cat photos pop up.
So we've just named off so many ways that we see the benefits and the support that we have from having pets.
But science would tell you that you're wrong, Ryan.
Science tells us we don't know what the hell we're talking about.
Right.
So we found a bunch of research, and I was surprised when I actually found this research that how strongly it says that all the previous research that says that having pets increases your well-being, supports your mental health, your physical health, they're saying that actually isn't true. And this
It's all bullshit.
Newer research is saying that there aren't any clear indications that it improves anything, and it might actually worsen things for you.
Right.
So we think we actually like the idea that we found this research, because we're going to bring that into the class, and we're actually going to ask the class to interrogate that information a little bit, because again, the theme of this course is like looking at these phenomena, these things that can be observed within society and with us as a humankind, but within all of these themes is the subjectivity and how each of these things impacts us on an individual level, and how our stories and voices are different, but that we can feel the connection with one another by hearing that stuff. So,
and also, who's an expert? Is it some egghead from Harvard, or is it you and your lived experience with your animal?
It's me.
Okay, good.
They don't know me and my cats. They don't know what's going on in this place. Mm-hmm. But we're going to bring a little bit of that research in and chat about it a little bit and talk about that. But we're not going to bring that into the podcast because that's boo.
Ryan gives a thumbs down.
We don't agree with that information. So the next thing that I want us to talk about is personal pet stories for us. I've always had pets in my life. I actually don't recall any time in my life since I was a very young child that there wasn't a pet in my life. So I've got so many pet stories I could share, but you have some newness happening in your life.
About a week ago, I picked up a beautiful kitten We've named it, by the way, but it's the tentative name. So I want to also put it out there to the students and to you. So far we're going with, I wanted Buffy. Buffy was not popular around here. And then, so we settled on Dawn, but that could change at any moment. DAWN.
Dawn?
Yeah.
DAWN, not DON.
No.
Okay. Dawn.
But we are soliciting for interesting cat names, if you know of any.
So the cat has been temporarily named with the caveat that if there's a poll and there is some strong reasoning as to why there should be another name,
Right.
that your household is open to Kitty being renamed.
We're open to suggestions, and we may rename it if something good does come out of the poll. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll get some names gathered and check in with the class and see if they've got some ideas for it.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's exciting. Wow, what a gamble. What a gamble.
Well, I just want a legal disclaimer. If it's you're gonna call my cat shithead or something, like, I'm not. It's not. No, I'm not obligated to use the name. But if something interesting comes up, I would love to hear it, because we're just struggling with cat names. But we also felt like we needed to name her something because it was getting weird to have a cat without a name for over a week.
Right. Yeah. So you got this cat how long ago?
Last Saturday, so it's been like 8 days or something.
8 days. Oh my gosh. Tell us about it. How did this come to be?
I've been wanting a cat for so long. I've had cats growing up most of my life, and there was a long absence. So I had to make a tough decision like a couple of summers ago, about putting down our family cat. She was very sick and very old, and we loved her very much, and it was her time to go. And then I've been thinking about getting a cat ever since then. I always love having them around, but I was so hesitant to, because I was just finishing school and I didn't have a lot of money. And I didn't have regular work or anything like that. And so I just didn't feel like I could provide a home for an animal that might need food and shelter and maybe a vet visit and shots and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I kept thinking that way until kind of living under these conditions where, like, life has become so abnormal and doesn't feel right. I wanted something that would make me feel normal, and I couldn't think of anything better than a cat or pet to make me feel like a living human being who's got a life to lead and wants love in their life and all that stuff. So that's what made me decide it. And then I put the word out to my friends, and then you let me know that there were cats available if I wanted one.
I found some cats for you.
Thanks, man.
That's one of my magic powers, is finding lost animals that need a home. So
I knew if I told you that somehow you would come up with a cat somehow. You would make one.
You're not alone. You wouldn't believe how many people have asked me about animals that they're looking for, or help with found animals that are broken in some way. I'm so happy you found each other.
Thank you.
It's so great.
And she's great. And she's surpassed all my expectations. She's got tons of energy, and she attacks things, and she runs up and down the cat tree that you gave me, and she's really wild. And I forgot how wild and beautiful kittens are. They're so much fun to be around.
They are so wild. Wow. That's so great.
Yeah.
Well, we're looking forward to having updates from you and Kitty, who shall possibly be renamed.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what happens.
I'm sure she'll be in class. She'll be in class. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, I currently have 3 cats, and they are all in the 17-year-old range. So I have 3 elderly cats. You wouldn't know it. They all still very much act like kittens, except they move a little bit slower. At least 2 of the 3 move slower. One, I think, actually moves faster now. She does zoomies. I don't know if folks know what zoomies are, but this is this thing where Lanyap, she will just be in a deep snooze, and suddenly her head will pop up, and she's now deaf, but her head will pop up like, did you hear that? And she takes off so fast, and she will just race through the house for about 2 minutes, just galloping as fast as she can from room to room. And then she'll just put on the brakes and stop, and I can hear her actually like snort with excitement. And then she'll go back to sleep and lie back down. And every time she does it, the other cats go on alert, like something's happening. And she'll just race around. It's hilarious. It happens almost every single night. But I've got 3 elderly cats, and all of these cats are cats that I came into my life accidentally. I didn't seek them out. They're all stray cats that I found, and found them all within the same period of time that they all came to me. So they all come from different stories, different areas, but now we are a pack and they are all living their lives together. But knowing that they're getting older in their years, I'm starting to think now about what that's looking like, end of life, and what's coming next in my relationship with them. With not just one, but with 3 cats. That feels pretty significant. And it's causing me some worry as to what that's going to feel like and wondering how that's going to impact them. They've been in each other's lives for 17 years. That's going to be a big change for them. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it's definitely on my mind these days.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you hesitate to take them on when you found them or when they came into your awareness?
No, I never do. I never hesitate. I take them in and I immediately start to bond with them, and I can't turn my back on an injured animal or an animal that is lost. I've been doing this my whole life. Every animal that came home with me, it was usually like me trying to bargain as to why I could keep them, or I'd try and keep them hidden somewhere where my parents didn't know where it was, and like, try and have a bird in the house that nobody would notice, stuff like that. But no, I don't. As an adult, I don't hesitate when I take them in. People who I've lived with and partners of mine have definitely had other thoughts about stuff, but
and you got rid of them before you got rid of the animal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. They didn't want the pets. It's like, well, it was nice. See ya.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I always find a way. I always find a way that it can be comfortable and happy, and I'm happy to have them in my life and living with me. So at one point we had 4 cats, and now we've got 3. But that's the most.
Hey Ryan,
Cats,
I love that about you. I love that about you, that you take in animals and that you care enough about creatures to dedicate yourself to them. I think that's wonderful.
It's such a lovely experience too, and knowing that there's so many people out there who work in these wildlife rehabilitation centers and stuff. It's like you're not doing it alone, but it's I do seem to cross paths with a lot of animals that need some kind of help. So yeah, it's been fun.
That's how we met. I was under a crate, and I think I was living there for weeks, just me under the crate in a blanket. And you found me, you took me in, you nursed me back to health, you bottle fed me. It was lovely. Appreciate it.
Constant mewling. I just couldn't take it anymore.
I put on 150 pounds of weight with the milk.
They giggle.
Thank you.
That is the thing. That is the thing with me and lost animals, is that they tend to put on a bit of weight because I like to give them treats, and whenever they say they're hungry, I believe them. Mm-hmm. Even if they're eating and puking because they've eaten too much and they're like, but I still want more. I'm like, okay, sweetie, you know what you need, and I'll give them some more. And it's just this bit of a cycle. But yeah, but you look perfect, Pablo. You're the perfect size.
Thank you. I'm well groomed.
Father Cat, you're well groomed. Okay, so where should we go from here? Let me give this some thought here.
Ryan rubs his chin.
Famous pets. Okay, here's a thing that I wanted to ask about. Is there a animal from your childhood or earlier on in your life, some kind of a famous animal that you have a story about or have an appreciation for, or maybe even a dislike for? I don't know, some creature that you were just like, oh yeah, this is interesting.
There's a million cartoon animals that I just love, like Tom and Jerry and Bugs Bunny, but when I was a kid, I used to love this show, and maybe this is dating me quite a bit because people in the class might not know about it, or maybe they do. The Littlest Hobo, which was a story about, it was a TV series, a Canadian TV series about a little German Shepherd, I believe it was a German Shepherd, who would go from town to town, getting into adventures and solving people's problems, getting kids out of wells, and just spending time with military veterans and just doing interesting things every week.
So many wells in the 70s and 80s, eh?
Right. Most kids were at the bottom of, that's right.
Yeah.
Most kids were in wells.
When we were kids, we weren't told be home before the street lights on. It's like, don't be falling down any wells while you're out of the house, right?
They should probably close them up. And they did eventually. In the 80s, they closed up all the wells.
Well, the Littlest Hobo took care of all of them. So tell us more about the Littlest Hobo. So a dog that travels from town to town.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was something to the music and the animal himself or herself. So, anyways, my mom saw the show being filmed. She worked at a hospital, and they were filming a scene outside of the hospital. And she told me when I was a kid, and it blew my mind and blew all illusions about Hollywood and everything else, that there was actually like 10 of them, and each one of them had a specific role. Like one of them was good at fetching, one of them was good at shaking paws or whatever, one of them was good at climbing things. So they would switch out the dog and pretend that it was one dog. How disgusting is this deceit?
I did not know that, and I feel angry.
Yeah. And now you have to rethink your whole childhood because of the
Yeah,
lies. Yeah.
that feels like quite the betrayal. I had no idea. Wow. And I got quite an attention to detail, and that is shocking to me. I really believed it was that one dog who did all that stuff. So instead,
You wanted to believe.
there was a full cast of dogs that took on all of those different
Yeah.
parts of that show.
And I
Wow.
hear that this is what they do in Hollywood. Air Bud is the same way. It's every time you see a magic dog, there's 10 of them behind that magic.
Man, I watched Littlest Hobo too, and I thought that was a fantastic show. It broke my heart though. Like every episode when the music would begin and you'd see him trotting off down the road, and there'd be like some little kid like standing on the side of the road waving at them, kind of a smile on their face, but quite heartbroken because just about every single kid that dog met, they believed that they could keep that dog. And it
Mhm.
was this difficult goodbye every single episode, watching this short relationship be so beautiful and this deep learning happening, and then it had to end, and then the dog was hitting the road again. It even makes me think of kind of like the Incredible Hulk with like
Yes.
the sad music of that,
Bruce Banner can't settle
can't
down.
ever
Yeah.
be, yeah, he
Yeah.
can't ever be with anybody. He's just got to keep on moving,
Because
like,
he has to go get involved in things, and he's like, he knows that that's part of his journey. He's like, he can't just settle down yet. He's got things to do, and maybe one day, and it's in the song. Maybe tomorrow I'll want to settle down. Maybe tomorrow I'll just keep moving on. Or so I think that's in the Little Sobo
until
song.
tomorrow.
Until tomorrow.
Tomorrow, I'll just keep moving on.
We'll play the song so
Wow.
people can hear it. It's a
Yeah.
very sad, melancholy tune.
Yeah, I would be crying every episode. Like I felt so sad for that dog and for all those people who got such a short experience. I remember actually wondering at times when I would get in trouble as a kid. I'd be out doing something or I'd see some other kid getting in trouble. It's like I actually had the idea that maybe the littlest hobo is going to show up in our neighborhood and like fix the problem, and
Oh,
I'm going to be the one that the littlest hobo actually wants to like stick around for a little while longer and hang out with because I'm so cool. But it
I'm-
never happened.
I'm sure that on some level, I was also hoping that whatever was happening at the time when I was a child, that the Littlest Hobo would come by and rescue me from whatever that was. And maybe you had that same thought too.
Yeah, like jump on their back and hold on to their mane like it was a horse, and you're just gonna like thunder off into some other space and get away from what was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Wow, that's so
that's
cool.
enough about the Littlest Hobo. Now, what's your show?
So my show, I was giving this a bit of thought, and I realized, oh my gosh, I had all these memories come back in such a wonderful way. So my favorite show, and I'm just gonna say before I get into details of the show, there was animal cruelty that happened with this show. Unfortunately,
That's why you loved it.
It was with it was with live animals. It was called Hammy Hamster.
Hamster.
Tales from the Riverbed. So this was a show about all of these small animals. There was a hamster, a guinea pig, all of these different little creatures, and they made this set, and they had all these elaborate stories that these animals would participate in. So rather than a cartoon, they actually had live animals with like flying in an airplane, pretending to fly in an airplane, like dropping mail bags down off the side, and they had like a diving bell, and they were like having to solve problems in every episode. And I absolutely loved it, and I believed every minute of it. It was fantastic. Like I couldn't get enough of it. It had such an impact on me that show actually drew me out of my home to be more engaged with the woods and the outdoors and adventure, because they actually created these scenes in the show where I then went into the woods trying to find those same things happening with these wild creatures. I spent so much time in the woods by myself, on my belly in the grass, watching and waiting, and see like a rabbit come out from somewhere and just like all these little creatures and stuff. And I just absolutely loved it. I loved hanging out in the woods by myself and just waiting for wild animals to show up. Such fond memories. But yeah, Hammy Hamster.
I remember that show really well. I was really into it too.
I was so sad to find out that there's animal cruelty because they all seemed really happy doing the jobs that they were doing in the show. But that's the magic of television, right? There's things that can be done and perceived in a way that isn't accurate and true. But I totally love that.
I'm laughing
Okay.
and smiling because I'm uncomfortable with the topic of animal cruelty. I don't like it, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm very uncomfortable. And when you talk about Hollywood and animals, like cruelty goes hand in hand with animal actors. Hopefully not so much anymore, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when we introduced this podcast, we said that it's about the phenomena of pets, but we wanted to make it even broader because there are lots of people who don't have pets currently, maybe have never had a pet, and don't necessarily care for an understanding or relationship with a pet, or what. There can be all different kinds of reasons. So we actually wanted to open it up a little bit more to talk about our connection and relationship to animals and creatures of any kind. So we want that to be part of the discussion in the class, but as a way to kind of like end our podcast for this week. The question that I want to ask you and to myself as well is there an animal that you have a particular interest in, that you actually feel connected to, that you might have some shared qualities or aspiration to be more like, or something that you're just like totally intrigued by? Like, is there an animal that you're actually feeling very connected to?
For sure, yeah. There's several, but lately and in the past couple of years, I love foxes, and I think about their cheekiness and
Fox
how
photos appear.
cunning and smart and playful. Like they encompass all these different things that I would like to inhabit. You know.
Ryan smiles and nods.
So yeah, foxes.
Have you ever seen a fox?
I've seen tons of foxes in my life. Yeah, I've seen them. Like I've had them run at me. I've had them be startled by me. Yeah. I don't know what I don't know why, but yeah.
So foxes are even drawn to you.
Maybe I look like a rabbit or something. Maybe I look like a victim of a fox, but yeah.
That's very interesting, Pablo, because there are plenty of people who have never seen a fox. They've most likely seen one either in kids' drawings or a cartoon or a nature show or something, but there are a lot of people, because foxes actually aren't that common to see. As you said, like, they're somewhat elusive, they're very cunning, they're very smart animals.
Very careful.
They know how to be undetected.
Yeah.
So how is it that you've seen foxes so many times in your life? You doing that's like a fox for you to encounter them?
I used to live in Scarborough. It was under development when I was growing up there, much of Scarborough, and I lived near a hydro field, and so there was kind of forest nearby and stuff. So yeah, they would come out, I guess, looking for food, and I would see them every now and then. But then even just visiting friends a little bit north of Toronto and stuff, like near their houses, they're just around every now and then. And every time, and I saw one on a late night walk in Toronto a few weeks ago. I think I told you about it, and yeah, it was just it's so nice to see something so wild in the city. It's a reminder of like life, and yeah, it's beautiful.
Ryan considers.
Wow, I'm so jealous. I've seen foxes myself too, because I love to be out. I love to go for drives. I love to get out of the city, and like driving down country roads and stuff is like my absolute favorite thing to do. Listen to music and just go wander, see if I can get lost. That's always my challenge to myself, is see if I can actually get lost. And that's when I usually encounter these animals that you wouldn't see normally. And I have seen some foxes, and they are pretty spectacular to see, because when you see them, it's like they stop and they look at you, and it's like they just give this big smile, like, and then that phrase comes to mind, like, catch me if you can. Is that connected to foxes? Like,
maybe,
even
yeah.
the idea, like, that they actually seem to like the fact that we're noticing them, and they don't tend to run away. They kind of like saunter off, like, watch me go, right? Like,
yeah, because you can't catch them anyway, because they won't let you.
Yeah, they're incredible. They're so beautiful. Wow.
All right,
to bring up some pictures of foxes too.
Tell me about what animal do you feel connected to?
So I can think of attributes in so many different animals that I'm connected to, but I've become quite fond of birds in the last 5 years or so. Like I'm very interested in birds. I love watching them. I love hearing them. I've gotten so used to now hearing a new sound in the air that I can notice that there's a bird that I haven't heard before, and I want to know what they look like and what their characteristics are and stuff. But I really love birds of prey. I'm very fascinated by birds of prey, and there are quite a few in downtown Toronto that people aren't even aware of. Peregrine falcons that live in downtown Toronto.
A photo of a falcon.
And I really do feel connected to a falcon. They are these incredible birds that can live right in the middle of a very busy place and not be seen. And to be able to soar and to fly, like I've always wanted to fly. Since I was a kid, it's an ongoing dream I have. To now, I still have this dream where I can just jump off and start to fly. And it feels so good. Like there's nothing as interesting. If I could have a superpower, it's like anytime someone asks me a question like, what would you it's always like, I want to fly. I want to fly. No matter what the conditions are, I always want to fly. So a falcon, to be able to fly really fast and to be able to have that sight as well. I've had shitty vision since I was a child. I've always worn glasses, and that's limited me in many ways. I wanted to be a firefighter at one point. I wanted to be a pilot, but you can't have bad vision in order to do those things. So I also really appreciate the falcon's eye to be able to see something so far down to the ground and to pinpoint stuff. And I realize now, as I'm older as well, that to have that kind of sight, it doesn't necessarily have to be coming from your actual eyeballs, that there's another way of seeing that I really appreciate. But yeah, the falcon, I feel connected. Oh, I just want to go flying now.
Yeah, me too. You've inspired me. I want to be a falcon too. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I can fly around and find all the foxes and
leave them
be.
Okay,
leave them be.
They giggle.
But both of those are I think that they evoke a sense of freedom, and maybe that's why we're attracted to them. The freedom of flight and the freedom of being such a fleeting animal like a fox is exciting.
Ryan nods and stares pensively.
And there was something else I was just going to say, but I can't remember what it is now.
Let's stare at each other until you figure it out.
Oh, I know what it is. They're playful too. Foxes are very playful. When you watch them playing in a meadow and watching them leap up into the air and like chase butterflies, and like they can be the most playful, childlike creature. And foxes can actually be around humans and not be aggressive and beautiful. And falcons too. It's like these birds that just want to like see how high they can fly and like do twists and turns and all these aerial acrobats that isn't about surviving. It isn't about hunting. It's about actually enjoying the skills that we have and getting the most out of our time, and that's something I really, really appreciate.
I love that. And it's making me think of the freedom of being a child, or the freedom of having a body, and the freedom of, cool.
Nice. So on that note, I think that's kind of bringing us to a close for this podcast. So until next week, we're going to say goodbye. And thanks again for chatting, Pablo. Pleasure as always.
Yeah, that was fun. Okay.
Yeah, bye. See ya.
Title: Phenomenal Psychology.
It keeps on calling me down the road. It's where I'll always be.
Thank you for watching.
Every stop I make a new friend.
Fade to black.
Can't stay for long, just turn around and I'm gone again. Maybe tomorrow I'll wanna settle down. Until tomorrow I'll just keep moving on.